you don't forget the sound of betrayal. It isn't loud. It's small. It's the clink of a jewelry box closing when you weren't supposed to hear it. It's the whisper of laughter behind a half-closed door. It's your own heart realizing the people you love just put a price tag on it. That morning, I heard all of it. My name is Joanna, but everyone calls me Grandma Jo, except lately my grandkids have started calling me Granny Offline. They say it with that mock-sweet tone that only teenagers can master. Half joke, half cruelty. I laugh along most days. You learn to swallow disrespect when it comes wrapped in youth. But that day, something inside me cracked. It started with an ordinary Tuesday. I was in the kitchen making pancakes, the only piece I have left since moving into my son's suburban house outside Dallas. My wrists ache when I stir. But I still make breakfast every morning, because it's what grandmothers do when they're trying to earn their keep in someone else's home. Upstairs, I heard Jason and Lily arguing. Jason is 16, obsessed with online games, the kind where you shout into a headset and forget real people exist. Lily is 13 and believes she's already an influencer because she has 6,000 followers on TikTok. They both have their father's eyes and their mother's disregard. "Sell it, dude. It's just old junk," Jason's voice. "She'll notice," Lily hissed back. "It's shiny, not junk." My hand froze on the spatula. The sound came from my bedroom, my little corner of the house. When you've lived through wars, heartbreaks, and funerals, you learn to move quietly. I wiped my hands, crept down the hallway, and looked through the cracked door. Lily was holding my small wooden jewelry box, the one I kept from my wedding day 48 years ago. The gold ring with the tiny ruby, my late husband's gift, was in her palm. Jason stood beside her, tapping his phone nervously. $200 easy, he muttered. "That new headset's on sale till Friday." My first instinct wasn't anger. It was disbelief. I wanted to think they were playing a joke, pretending. But Jason slipped the ring into his pocket and said, "She won't even notice. She never wears it." The door creaked under my fingers, and they spun around like guilty burglars. Lily's face drained of color. "Grandma, we were just trying it on," I said, my voice calm in a way that scared even me. Jason laughed too loudly. "Relax, Grandma. It's not like you use it. You've got other rings." "That one," I said softly, "is your grandfather." They looked confused. Kids who grew up thinking love was something you typed, not something you wore for half a century. Jason shrugged. Okay, chill. We'll put it back." But I knew he wouldn't. The way his eyes darted told me everything. I didn't shout, I didn't demand, I just said, "Breakfast is ready." They followed me downstairs, whispering. My hands shook as I poured the batter, but I smiled like nothing happened. That's the thing about being underestimated. They never see the storm forming behind your quiet eyes. By noon, they were gone. Their mother took them to the mall. My son was at work as usual. I walked back to my room, opened the jewelry box, and stared at the empty spot. My fingers touched the small indentation where the ring had slept for decades. For a moment, I felt like a ghost in my own life, transparent, unneeded. On the nightstand was a photo of Henry, my husband, holding me by the waist on our wedding day, both of us laughing in the Texas sun. He died 12 years ago, heart failure at the grocery store. I whispered, "They sold you for pixels, my love," and I felt a slow, steady anger rising. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that plans. That evening, Lily posted a new TikTok. I heard her giggling in the living room. Out of curiosity, I opened the app she had installed on my phone, so I wouldn't be such a fossil. The video showed Jason unboxing a sleek black gaming headset, the caption reading, "Thanks, Grandma Jo. You are spoiled the passion family goals." The comments poured in. "So lucky. Wish my grandma was rich, lel." Granny got game. My hands trembled, but not from age, from rage. When my son Daniel came home, I almost told him, but he was tired, his tie crooked, the weight of bills already in his eyes. He kissed my cheek distractedly. "How were the kids today, Mom?" "Perfect," I said, because sometimes silence is sharper than truth. That night, while the house slept, I sat at the kitchen table with Henry's old checkbook and a cup of cold coffee. I still owned the deed to this house. When Daniel bought it years ago, his credit wasn't enough, so I had co-signed the mortgage. Except the bank manager had quietly suggested something better. "If you make the full down payment, Ms. Joanna, it'll be easier to keep the property under your name until your son's finances improve." I never changed it back. Not out of greed, just forgetfulness or fate. Now, at 71, I stared at those documents and realized what power really means. They thought I was powerless. They thought my love made me harmless. They were wrong. The next morning, Jason bragged at breakfast about reaching level 90 with his new headset. He didn't notice my steady gaze. "Congratulations," I said, slicing my toast. "Winning feels good, doesn't it?" He grinned. "Yeah, guess it does." "Enjoy it," I murmured, "before everything resets." He frowned, not understanding. Lily scrolled on her phone, half listening. I sipped my coffee, already dialing a number from memory. "Mr. Clarkson, my late husband's lawyer." "Joe," he said, his voice warm, "I haven't heard from you in ages." "I need to sell a property," I replied, quietly. "Your house?" "Yes, mine." I hung up, feeling the first strange rush of liberation in years. For the first time since Henry died, I wasn't the weak one in this house. As I folded the paperwork into my purse, Lily looked up and asked, "Going somewhere, Grandma?" "Just running an errand, dear." "Want me to order you an Uber?" "No," I said, smiling faintly. "I prefer to drive myself when I'm changing destinies." Outside, the morning sun hit the windshield, bright and merciless. I looked at the reflection of my lined face and whispered, "They think you're old, Joe. They have no idea what old women are capable of." When I started the car, I didn't feel 71. I felt unstoppable. And back inside that house, two spoiled children laughed over a stolen ring, completely unaware that their victory had just signed their eviction notice. People think revenge burns like fire. They're wrong. Fire is quick. My revenge was ice, slow. Silent, spreading under the floorboards until the whole house froze from the inside. The lawyer, Mr. Clarkson, still had his office downtown. Same old building, same green leather chairs that smelled of time. When I walked in, he blinked, surprised but pleased. "Well, if it isn't Joe Taylor, you still drive that old Buick?" "I do," I said, smiling faintly. "She's got more miles left in her than people think." He poured me coffee like he always used to when Henry and I came in to sign papers. I looked at the framed diploma behind his head, the reflection of my own wrinkled face in the glass. "I want to sell my house," I said. His pen froze mid-air. "You mean Daniel's house?" I met his eyes. "No, mine. I still hold the deed. I've checked." He whistled softly. "Does he know?" "Not yet." He studied me carefully. "Joe, you're not doing this out of spite, are you?" I laughed quietly. "Spite? No. Lesson, maybe." He didn't press further. Good lawyers know when not to ask. He opened his files, and the rustle of paper sounded like freedom. By the time I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. But inside that house, the air was thicker than usual. Lily was sprawled on the couch, filming herself for another video. She didn't even glance up when I entered. "Hey, Grandma, can you move? You're in my frame," she said, waving me aside with her manicured hand. I stepped out of her shot and smiled politely. I had learned that invisibility was a weapon. Jason was in the kitchen yelling into his headset. "No, dude, I said flank left. Grandma, can you not slam cupboards, please?" The mic picks it up. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said, opening and closing drawers louder than necessary. "My hearing's not what it used to be." He groaned dramatically. "Boomers, man." I didn't answer. I simply watched him. The new headset glinting under the light, the same price as my wedding ring. For a moment, Henry's face flashed before me, smiling from our wedding day. My fingers twitched, wanting to snatch the thing from Jason's head, but I didn't. Not yet. That night, I sat in my room with the door locked and wrote a letter, not with email or phone, but pen and paper. I addressed it to Daniel. The words came slowly at first, then like a flood. You've forgotten who built this family. You've forgotten what things cost, not in dollars, but in love. One day, you'll understand what happens when you let greed live under your roof. The next morning, I visited an old friend, Margaret Lane, who worked at the real estate agency. She'd been my neighbor when Henry and I first moved to the suburbs, a widow like me now, sharp as a knife, even at 70. "Selling, Joe?" she asked, her eyebrow rising. "Yes," I said, "but discreetly. I don't want my family to know until the papers are signed." Margaret smiled slowly. "Oh, honey, this is going to be good, isn't it?" "Maybe," I said, "depending on how you define good." She promised to list it privately, to show it only to serious buyers. Within days, there were calls. Houses in our area sold fast. One couple, young and polite, fell in love with it immediately. They offered above asking price. I accepted without blinking. If you enjoy the story, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me bring more tales to life. Thanks for being here. 3 days later, I signed the preliminary agreement. The moment the pen left the paper, my hands trembled. But it wasn't fear. It was satisfaction. That night, Jason bragged again about his new in-game skin, whatever that meant. Lily showed me her new sponsored post, teaching my grandma how to use filters. In the video, she'd replaced my face with a cartoon pig's snout and millions of fake sparkles. Her followers commented, "LOL savage." They thought it was funny. The internet always laughs until it doesn't. Daniel came home late, as usual. He was stressed, muttering about the mortgage. "Mom, I swear, if interest rates keep rising, we're done for." I can barely keep up with the bills. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Maybe you should talk to the bank," I suggested gently. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "If it weren't for your help years ago, we'd be homeless." My lips twitched. "Don't worry, dear. I'll make sure you never forget my help." That weekend, the buyers came to finalize things. I told the family I was going to the pharmacy. In truth, I sat across from Mr. Clarkson in his office again, signing the final documents. He handed me a check and smiled. "It's done. They'll close in 2 weeks. You sure about this, Joe?" "Never been surer," I said, folding the check into my purse. "I've been invisible in that house long enough. Time to become the ghost they can't escape." When I got back, Jason and Lily were arguing in the yard about who got to park closer to the garage. They didn't even see me walk past them. In my room, I opened my jewelry box again, the empty space still there, mocking me. I took a new ring from my purse, one I'd bought that morning, a cheap imitation ruby, shining proudly but meaning nothing. I placed it right in the same spot. It wasn't for me, it was bait. I left the lid slightly open. That evening, Lily found it. "Grandma, you got a new ring." I smiled. "Oh, just something I picked up. Not worth much." Her eyes flickered, that same greedy glint I'd seen before. "Pretty, though." "Yes," I said softly, "but some things aren't worth stealing twice." She blinked, not understanding, and went back to her phone. That night, I dreamed of Henry. His rough hands, his warm laugh. "You're doing it again," he said in the dream, teasingly. "Teaching lessons the hard way. Someone has to," I whispered back. When I woke, I knew exactly how to finish what I'd started. The following morning, I baked cinnamon rolls, the smell filling the whole house. Jason and Lily came running like puppies. I set the tray down. "Eat up, kids, we're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Lily asked, her mouth full. "Change," I said. "Big, beautiful change." They looked at each other, confused. Daniel walked in, buttoning his shirt for work. "You look awfully cheerful, Mom. Did something good happen?" "Oh, yes," I said. "Something wonderful, but don't worry. You'll find out soon." As he left, I saw the realtor's SUV turn the corner, the buyers stepping out for one last visit before closing. I waved through the window, smiling sweetly. Jason frowned. "Who are they?" "Just some nice people," I said. "They're going to love this house." He laughed, not realizing what I meant. But in 2 weeks, when the official letter arrived from the real estate office, when Daniel realized the deed had never been in his name, that's when they'd finally understand. That's when my silence would roar. You can tell a lot about people by how they react to surprise. Some scream, some freeze. My son went silent. That dangerous, breathless silence right before a man's world cracks in half. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the letter arrived. I was trimming roses in the garden when the mail truck stopped. The envelope had that official real estate letterhead. Elegant, white, heavy paper. I held it for a second, then placed it carefully on the kitchen counter next to Daniel's mug, right where he'd see it when he came home. By evening, I was sitting in my armchair, knitting as if nothing had happened. Jason was shouting into his headset again. Lily was filming herself making grandma core breakfast, her latest internet trend. The smell of burned toast filled the air. At exactly 6:42, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. The tires crunched the gravel the way they always did, and my heart started beating faster, not from fear, but from anticipation. He came in, loosened his tie, and saw the letter. "What's this?" he muttered, tearing it open. His eyes scanned the page once, then again. The color drained from his face. "Mom," he said, his voice rough, "this says the house has been sold." "Yes," I replied, calmly folding my knitting. "That's correct." He stared at me like I'd started speaking another language. "Sold? What do you mean sold? This is our house." I met his gaze, steady and unblinking. "No, Daniel. It's mine. Always has been. You remember when you couldn't qualify for the mortgage? I put my name on it. You never changed the title." Jason had taken off his headset, finally aware of something serious. Lily had her phone out, filming, at least until Daniel snapped, "Turn that thing off." She froze, startled. It was the first time she'd seen her father truly angry. "Mom," Daniel said again, trying to keep his composure, "please tell me this is a mistake. Why would you sell our home?" "Because you let your children steal my husband's memory and call it a game," I said quietly. Jason blinked. "What are you talking about?" "My wedding ring," I said, my voice trembling now but clear. "The one you sold for a headset, the one your grandfather placed on my finger 50 years ago." Jason's mouth fell open. "That was Grandma." "It was just a ring." "No," I said. "It was everything. And you traded it for pixels." Daniel turned to his son, disbelief twisting into fury. "You what?" Jason muttered. "It was just for a game, Dad. She never wore it." "Enough!" Daniel shouted, slamming his hand on the counter. The sound echoed through the house. Lily started crying silently, her phone trembling in her hand. I stood up slowly, every joint in my body aching, but I held my ground. "You all thought I was too old to notice. Too weak to matter. But the law doesn't care about age. It cares about names on deeds." Daniel's voice cracked. "Mom, where are we supposed to go?" "I arranged something for you," I said. "There's a rental not far from here. Cozy, affordable. You'll manage." "Affordable?" He laughed bitterly. "Mom, this is insane. You can't just throw your family out." I looked at him the way I used to when he was a boy caught lying about breaking a window. "You threw me out first, Daniel. Maybe not from this house, but from your respect, from your trust. That's worse." For a moment, no one spoke. Only the hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Jason finally muttered, "You're evil." I smiled sadly. "No, dear, just educated." I walked past them, out onto the porch where the sunset burned red across the sky. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. Behind me, I could hear the beginnings of chaos, Daniel calling someone on the phone, Jason slamming a door, Lily sobbing quietly. I didn't feel joy, not yet, just the deep, cold calm that comes after a storm you've waited too long to unleash. 2 weeks later, moving trucks filled the driveway. The new owners, the young couple I'd met with Mr. Clarkson, arrived with their golden retriever and boxes of fresh hope. I handed them the keys with a smile. They looked at me curiously. "Are you sure you don't want to stay, Mrs. Taylor? We could delay the handover." "No," I said. "I've stayed too long already." As the truck drove off with my family's belongings, I stood at the gate. Lily turned back once, her mascara streaked, her phone clutched tightly like it could still save her. Jason refused to meet my eyes. Daniel, exhausted, just said, "Mom, why didn't you tell me? We could have talked." I touched his arm gently. "You stopped listening a long time ago, son." Then I watched them go. That night, I moved into a small apartment downtown, just 2 rooms, sunlight in the morning, peace at last. Mr. Clarkson handled everything. The sale money went into a new account, mine alone. For the first time in years, I cooked just for myself. I made coffee the way Henry liked it, poured 1 cup for me, one for the memory of him. I thought that was the end. But life has a strange sense of humor. 3 weeks later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I saw Lily, pale, thin, holding her phone like it was a lifeline. "Grandma," she whispered, "we need your help." Her voice trembled, and for a second I saw the scared little girl beneath the cruelty. I stepped aside silently, letting her in. "What happened?" I asked. "It's Dad," she said. "He lost his job. We can't afford rent. Jason's been suspended from school for fighting. Mom's gone." Her voice broke and she started crying for real this time, not the fake attention-seeking kind. "I'm sorry about the ring, about everything. Please, Grandma, don't hate us." I didn't speak for a long time. I just listened to her crying, to the sound of guilt finally learning its own language. Then I went to the cupboard and took out a small box. Inside was the fake ruby ring, the one I'd bought after selling the house. I placed it in her hand. "Do you know why I bought this?" I asked. She shook her head. "Because sometimes we have to lose the real thing to understand what it was worth." She looked down at it, sobbing quietly. "Are you going to help us?" I smiled faintly. "Of course, sweetheart, but not with money." "Then how?" "With lessons." I handed her an apron. "Start with dinner, then we'll talk about rebuilding. The right way this time." And as she chopped onions beside me, awkward and slow, I realized revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, one painful, humbling step at a time. But don't get me wrong, I still kept the check. I used to think revenge was the end of a story. Turns out it's only the beginning of what comes after. The silence, the reckoning, the uncomfortable mirror where everyone has to face what's left of themselves. After that night, when Lily came crying to my door, everything changed in small, hesitant ways. She stayed with me for a while, not because I asked, but because she had nowhere else to go. Daniel had found a job in another town, a warehouse shift, nothing close to what he used to have, and Jason had run off to stay with friends, promising he'd figure things out. I knew that meant trouble. Lily slept on my couch the first few nights, clutching her phone like a security blanket. I let her, though I made her turn it off by 10. The first morning, she woke up confused to the smell of real breakfast. Eggs sizzling, coffee percolating, sunlight hitting the kitchen tiles. She blinked, squinting. "You cooked this?" I smiled without looking up from the stove. "Yes, dear. That's what people do when they're hungry." Her lips twitched, halfway between shame and gratitude. "At Dad's, we just DoorDash everything." "I know," I said quietly. "That's why I'm teaching you this." We ate in silence at first. Then she asked the question that had been burning behind her wide, tired eyes. "Grandma, did you ever regret it? Selling the house?" I set down my fork. "Every day. But sometimes the only way to open someone's eyes is to turn off the lights." She nodded slowly, not sure if she understood, but sensing she should. After breakfast, I gave her chores: laundry, sweeping, making the bed. She grumbled, but she did them. That was a start. In the afternoon, she followed me to the market. At first, she scrolled on her phone the whole way, but eventually, curiosity won. "How do you always know which fruit is ripe?" "Experience," I said, "and patience. 2 things your generation treats like viruses." She laughed a little at that, and for the first time I saw a trace of the child she once was, the one who used to braid my hair while watching cartoons. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly she changed. She started leaving her phone in her room without me asking. She helped an old woman carry groceries. She even began saving part of the small allowance I gave her. One night, while washing dishes, she said, "Grandma, I think I want to go back to school, not just for likes or followers. I want to do something real." I dried my hands and kissed the top of her head. That's the first sensible thing I've heard in this house in years. But peace never lasts long in families like mine. 3 weeks later, Daniel showed up at my door. He looked thinner, older, his shirt untucked, eyes bloodshot. He carried a small duffel bag and shame on his shoulders. "Mom," he said softly, "I didn't know where else to go." I looked at him for a long moment. "You have somewhere to go. You just burned it down." He nodded. "I know. I deserved everything you did." Lily appeared from the kitchen, her face lighting up. "Dad!" She ran to hug him. He held her like a man holding the last piece of good in his world. "I've missed you," he whispered. "I've been here helping Grandma," she said proudly. "I even made lasagna tonight." He looked at me then, eyes wet. "She's really changed. Thank you." I crossed my arms. "Don't thank me yet. Lessons aren't over." Daniel stayed that night, sleeping on a folded blanket on the floor. It felt strange, having them both under my roof again, not as dependents, but as students of life. I lay awake listening to their breathing, the rhythm of guilt turning into something like humility. The next morning I told Daniel we were going somewhere. "Where?" he asked. "You'll see." I drove us out of town, down the old road lined with oak trees, until we reached the place where the house used to stand, the one he'd thought was his. It looked different now. New paint, a picket fence, laughter from the windows. The young couple I sold it to were outside gardening. Daniel swallowed hard. "That's our house." "No," I corrected gently. "That's their home. You had one, but you forgot what that word meant." He stared for a long time, eyes glistening. "Mom, I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I said softly. "You just forgot that love without respect is cruelty dressed up as comfort." We watched the couple laughing together. Their dog barked, chasing a ball. Happiness was blooming in the soil my family had once poisoned. Finally, I turned the key in the ignition. "Let's go." Back home, Daniel insisted on getting a job anywhere he could. He started helping at a local auto shop. Lily took classes online and started volunteering at a shelter. I didn't forgive them immediately. Forgiveness isn't cheap. It's earned, hour by hour, with quiet consistency. Then one morning, as I watered my plants, Jason showed up. He looked nothing like the arrogant boy who'd once mocked me. His hair was longer, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes hollow. "Grandma," he said, voice shaking, "I messed up." I wanted to say I told you so, but instead I set down the watering can. "Come in." He confessed everything. Dropping out of school, getting mixed with the wrong crowd, losing every penny he had. "I thought I was smart," he said bitterly. "Turns out I was just loud." I poured him coffee and slid the cup across the table. "Welcome to adulthood, Jason." He gave a dry laugh. "Dad told me what you did, selling the house. I hated you for it, but now I get it." I looked at him carefully. "Do you?" He nodded. "You wanted us to feel the weight of what we threw away." For the first time, I saw true remorse in his eyes. I didn't say I forgave him, but I reached out and squeezed his hand. That was enough. Weeks later, all three of them sat at my table, Daniel, Lily, and Jason. No phones, no screens, no shouting, just the clink of forks and the smell of roast chicken filling the small apartment. Daniel raised his glass. "To Grandma Jo," he said quietly, "for teaching us what family really costs." I smiled, my throat tight. To lessons learned before it's too late. We toasted, and for a moment it felt like Henry was there too, sitting beside me, proud and amused. Later that night, after they'd gone to sleep, I sat alone by the window. Outside, the city hummed softly, alive and forgiving. I reached into my pocket and pulled out that fake ruby ring, the symbol of everything we'd lost and found again. I slipped it onto my finger. "Guess what, Henry?" I whispered to the dark. "They finally understand." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel old. I felt powerful. Because sometimes revenge isn't about ruining people. It's about rebuilding them into something better, one hard truth at a time. If anyone told me that peace could grow from revenge, I'd have laughed in their face. But as the months passed, I began to understand that justice doesn't always come from punishment. Sometimes it comes from education, from letting people taste humility until they crave decency. Life at my small apartment had become quiet but strangely alive again. Mornings were full of clinking dishes, the smell of coffee, and Lily's shy laughter. She'd gotten a part-time job at the bakery down the street, and every Friday she brought home day-old pastries and told me proudly, "They said I'm learning fast." Daniel still came by after work, grease on his hands and gratitude in his eyes. The exhaustion on his face was different now, not from stress, but from honest labor. And Jason, surprisingly, started volunteering at the same community center where Lily helped with kids' programs. The boy who once spent nights yelling into a headset now taught children how to fix old computers. One evening, after dinner, we sat around the small kitchen table, me with my tea, Daniel with his beer, the kids with lemonade. The window was open, letting in the sound of city life and a cool wind that carried the scent of rain. Daniel broke the silence first. "Mom, there's something I've been meaning to tell you." I looked up, curious. "I met someone," he said, almost sheepishly. "Her name's Claire. She's good, real, not like before." I smiled softly. "Good women are easy to find when you start being a good man." He chuckled. "You always know how to cut through the nonsense." Jason grinned. "Yeah, Grandma's savage." I gave him a playful look. "Careful, boy, or I'll make you sweep the balcony again." Everyone laughed, the kind of laughter that feels like forgiveness, not denial. Later, after they went home, I stayed at the table, staring at the little fake ruby ring on my finger. It caught the lamplight, shining like something real. Funny how even an imitation can carry more meaning than gold when it holds a story. But just as I was beginning to feel content, the universe decided to test me. It was a Sunday morning when I got the call. An unfamiliar number, but the voice on the other end was unmistakable. Jason's friend, Tyler. "Mrs. Taylor? It's about Jason. He's in trouble." My stomach turned to ice. I grabbed my purse and keys before he finished explaining. The words blurred together. Wrong crowd, stolen car, police station. By the time I arrived, Jason was sitting behind a glass partition, head in his hands. He looked up when he saw me, eyes red. "Grandma, I didn't do it. I swear. I was just there when they took it." I pressed my hand to the glass. "Then why were you with them?" Tears welled up. "They said it was just a ride. I didn't know." I exhaled slowly, steadying my voice. "I believe you, but belief isn't enough. You have to prove you're not that boy anymore." The officer let me post bail. As we walked out into the parking lot, Jason's shoulders shook. "I didn't want to call Dad. He's trying so hard, and I keep screwing everything up." I put a hand on his arm. "You made a mistake. One more step in the wrong direction, and you'll end up where regret lives permanently. But you came to me. That means something." Back home, Lily hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. "You idiot," she sobbed. "I thought you were different now." "I am," he said quietly. "At least I'm trying to be." If you enjoy the story, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me bring more tales to life. Thanks for being here. For days afterward, the house felt heavy again, full of old ghosts whispering, "See? People never change." But I refused to listen. I'd seen enough darkness in my life to know that even the worst nights can end with dawn. So I made Jason a deal. "You're going to pay off that bail money," I told him. "Every cent." He blinked. "Grandma, I don't have a job." "Then get one, or 3. I don't care if you mop floors or wash dishes. You earn it and you'll remember it." And he did. He worked double shifts at a diner and repaired computers in the evenings. He came home smelling like coffee and exhaustion, but he never complained. The day he handed me the last $50, his hands were shaking. "Here," he said, "every penny." I smiled and slipped the envelope back into his pocket. "Good. Now you know what honesty costs and what it's worth." For the first time since Henry died, I felt like our family wasn't just surviving. We were rebuilding, not on money or comfort, but on truth. One night, after dinner, Daniel brought out an envelope. "Mom," he said, placing it in front of me, "I've been saving something." Inside was a simple gold ring. The ruby was cracked, the band dull, but I knew it instantly. My wedding ring. Jason found it in a pawn shop weeks ago. Daniel said softly. He tracked it down himself. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. Jason stared at the table, ashamed. "I didn't think I'd find it, Grandma. But when I saw it in that dusty glass case, I knew I had to bring it home." My fingers trembled as I took it, the weight familiar, sacred. "You brought him back to me," I whispered. "You brought Henry home." Jason's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry for everything." I stood, walked around the table, and hugged him so tight, he gasped. "It's over, Jason. You've paid your debt." The fake ruby ring still sat on my finger. I looked at it one last time, then slid it off and handed it to Lily. "Keep it," I said. "Let it remind you how easy it is to lose something real when you stop appreciating it." She nodded, crying. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I slipped my real ring back onto my finger. The ruby glowed faintly in the lamplight, and for a moment, I could almost feel Henry's hand over mine. "I did it, love," I whispered. "They learned. They finally learned." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows, but it didn't sound like loneliness anymore. It sounded like peace. And as I turned off the lights, I smiled to myself, because sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom or a fight. It comes from a grandmother who remembers what love is supposed to look like and refuses to let her family forget it again. People think stories like mine end with forgiveness, a cozy family dinner, maybe some tears, then a fade to black. But life doesn't roll the credits so neatly. Real endings are quieter. They unfold like dawn, slow and honest, until you barely notice the light changing. It had been almost a year since I sold the house. I'd expected loneliness. What I got instead was peace, the kind that fills the cracks between heartbreak and healing. The apartment had grown warm with life again. Laughter, footsteps, the clink of mugs. Sometimes it smelled like cinnamon rolls, sometimes like coffee and old wood. It finally smelled like home. Daniel had been promoted at the auto shop. "Lead mechanic," he said proudly one night, showing up with oil on his collar and hope in his eyes. He was saving for his own small place, something simple and manageable. "This time," he told me, "I'll put your name on the deed only if you want to." I smiled. "Just make sure it's a home before it's a house." Lily had gotten her GED and was taking night classes in design. She'd even started a new social media account, not for vanity, but for art. She posted sketches of old hands, wrinkled faces, and eyes that had seen too much but still sparkled. One of her drawings of me went viral. She called it "Strength in Silence." Jason was the biggest surprise. He'd been offered a small scholarship for a tech program, repairing electronics for elderly people who couldn't afford replacements. He told me, "I guess I figured out who I want to help now." Sometimes they all came over for dinner, bringing laughter and little stories from their new lives. The past didn't vanish. It just stopped hurting so sharply. But something inside me still waited for a final moment, a closing chapter that felt truly complete. It came one Saturday morning, almost by accident. I was at the market picking out apples when a young couple approached me, the ones who had bought my old house. They recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Taylor, "We've been hoping to run into you," the woman said, smiling warmly. "We wanted to show you something." They invited me over for tea. I hesitated, but curiosity nudged me forward. When I walked into that house, my breath caught. The walls had been repainted a soft cream, sunlight streaming through clean curtains. It didn't look like the same house, not haunted by resentment anymore, but full of new beginnings. The woman handed me a small box. "We found this under the floorboards when we were renovating the living room. I think it's yours." My heart stuttered. Inside was an old photo. Me and Henry standing on that very porch, his arm around me, his eyes alive with laughter. I hadn't seen that picture in decades. Behind it was a folded note in Henry's handwriting. "Joe, if you ever lose your way, just remember, home isn't where we live. It's who we love." The words hit me like a prayer. I thanked them, holding the photo like something holy. When I got back to my apartment, I placed it on the wall above the kitchen table. It was the final piece. That night, we all gathered for dinner. Daniel, Lily, and Jason. The table was small, but somehow big enough for everything we'd rebuilt. Lily brought a pie. Jason brought flowers. Daniel brought laughter that didn't sound forced anymore. After dinner, Jason stood up. "Grandma," he said, nervously rubbing his hands together, "I want to tell you something." I nodded, waiting. "I got accepted," he said, eyes shining. "College, full ride, I start in the fall." The room went still for a moment, then erupted in cheers. Lily hugged him so tightly that his chair toppled over. Daniel just covered his face, laughing and crying at the same time. I sat there watching them, feeling tears rise, not from sadness, but from something deeper, sweeter, pride, relief, peace. When the noise died down, I cleared my throat. "Do you all remember the lesson?" They smiled, a knowing, gentle smile that said yes. "Then promise me this," I said softly. "Don't let what happened to us happen again. Don't measure love in money or gifts. Respect each other. That's the inheritance I want to leave you." They nodded solemnly. Daniel reached for my hand, rough from work but steady. "We won't forget, Mom." After they left, I sat alone for a while, the photo of Henry glowing faintly in the lamplight. The ruby on my finger, the real one, not the fake, gleamed beside my teacup. I thought about the girl I'd been at 21, full of hope, the woman I'd been at 71, full of fury, and the grandmother I was now, full of balance. I whispered into the quiet, "We're home again, Henry. Just a different kind of home." Outside, the city lights shimmered like distant stars. Somewhere, a siren wailed, a baby cried, someone laughed. Life went on. Imperfect, beautiful, real. I smiled to myself, knowing my story didn't end with revenge after all. It ended with something rarer, something I had to lose everything to find again. It ended with peace. The end. If you liked the story, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and write in the comments if something like this has ever happened in your life. I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for watching.